We sat quietly in the back corner sipping coffee, and they were smoking cigarettes. And we started putting photographs in front of this German and said, okay, if you see anybody you recognize, let us know. I'm Michael Maroney. I'm currently a GS-14 Executive Case Officer with the U.S. Army Foreign Counterintelligence Activity stationed at Fort Meade. Currently, I am on assignment with our detachment in Stuttgart, Germany.
Growing up the son of a military police officer in the Vietnam era, Mike Maroney decided to avoid being drafted and followed in his father's footsteps by enlisting in the Army.
I went to a recruiter outside of Baltimore. He had quotas for filling the 97 career group field, which included counterintelligence. And he said, your scores are high enough, why don't you consider this instead of the military police? So I said, why not? And then for the next 31 years, I beat the hell out of the draft, as we say.
After a 32-week course to learn German at the Defense Language Institute, Mike was assigned to the 165th MI Battalion in Frankfurt, Germany. After World War II, the Cold War saw the Soviets controlling East Germany and the Allies influencing West Germany. Sergeant Maroney found himself facing the tensions of the Cold War firsthand.
I got to Germany in November of 1971. It was exciting times because the work was real. The Cold War was still a war, even though there were no shots fired.
As a sergeant in counterespionage, Maroney's job was to monitor the Soviet Military Liaison Mission, or SMELM.
The Brits, the French, and the Americans all had military liaison missions in East Germany, and the Soviets had a military liaison mission in West Germany. The stated charter of these liaison missions was to monitor the activities of the opposing forces to ensure that there were no troops being massed on the border to launch a surprise attack. There were certainly suspicions that the Soviet liaison missions were exceeding their charter.
In 1974, Maroney's battalion received information from a German citizen that led them to believe that another German man was sharing information with the Soviets in a SMELM vehicle.
We interviewed the German citizen, and he said, I saw this gentleman leave the vehicle. He walked in the direction of a small village and disappeared from sight. I don't know his name, but I would recognize him if I saw him again. And so at that point, we had what we thought was a pretty good starting point for investigative activity. The question was, how do we find out who this guy is?
Maroney's team disguised themselves as surveyors and photographed every male between the ages of 20 and 45.
The van we had was a surveillance van, and it had a ventilator fan on the top that was not a ventilator fan, but was actually a periscope that led to a camera inside the van itself.
After a few days of collecting photos, they again met with the German citizen who informed them of the suspicious activity.
We sat quietly in the back corner sipping coffee, and they were smoking cigarettes, and we started putting photographs in front of this German and said, okay, if you see anybody you recognize, let us know. And then probably about the fifth or sixth photograph we laid in front of him, his eyes got big, and he said, that's the guy. We knew where this photograph had been taken, where this guy had come from. And so we were able to then do a specific records check to identify him. We left it to the Germans at that point because we did determine there was no U.S. Army nexus. And our charter did not allow us to investigate German citizens unless there was a direct threat or connection to U.S. Army Europe.
The success of the mission not only uncovered a possible informant, it also helped to shape Mike Maroney's future in counterintelligence.
It was a great opportunity for a young E5 to be engaged in a real-world surveillance operation that had actual impact.
Michael J. Maroney was inducted into the U.S. Army Military Intelligence Hall of Fame at Fort Huachuca, Arizona in 2002.
When I say the sky is the limit for those of you going into the CI field, you'll start out slow and low, but you can work yourself up to, at the end of 30 years, sitting down and having a general listen to you rather than you listening to the general.